At Tehran, the Big Three made their plans for the destruction of the enemy's forces in Europe in the quickest possible time. Since then, a series of announcements have revealed the names of British and American leaders entrusted with high responsibility in the coming Second Front operations. General Eisenhower is to lead the combined British and American expeditionary forces organizing in the United Kingdom. In other words, he's to be the Supreme Second Front Commander-in-Chief.
This account is taken from the United States National Archives and is the US Army description of the preparations for D-Day at the port of Southampton. This first part describes the personnel and the loading of motor transports and coasters at Southampton, as well as the totals for the outloadings of POL products at Fawley and Hamble. Chapter 9, Southampton and the Southern Ports. The 14th port was located in Southampton, Hampshire, England, and operated, in addition to the area about Southampton, a sub-port at Poole and several other installations a short distance south of Southampton. The headquarters office was located at Allen's Sweet Shop, 181 High Street. In the absence of Colonel Walter D. McCord, who was performing additional duties as Regional Transportation Officer, Headquarters Southern Base Section, Lieutenant Colonel Leo J. Mayer was acting port commander. Colonel McCord, however, retained command of the port, dividing his time between this headquarters and Headquarters Southern Base Section. In April, the normal duties of the port were performed with some difficulty, inasmuch as 47% of the officer personnel and 30% of the enlisted personnel were on detached service. This condition was further aggravated by a considerable increase in port activities in preparation for coming events. As of the 26th of April 1944, the port was officially closed to import. May was a momentous month in the young life of the 14th port. This month marked the end of cargo discharge at the Southampton port and at the same time set a new peak in D-Day preparations. Likewise, the strength of the 14th port and its attached units swelled to a new total of 5,229. Another May feature was the payment of the millionth dollar in reverse lend-lease by the British government for activities of the 14th port. One outstanding feature of the month was the establishment of the subport Poole, a suburb of Bournemouth. Activities of the subport included preloading of invasion craft, with supplies furnished by the Quartermaster, Ordnance, Engineer and Chemical Warfare Service. 10 barges were preloaded at Poole for France. This operation began on the 29th of May and was completed on the 31st of May. Labour was supplied by the 499th Port Battalion. 94 barges were preloaded at Southampton with cargo for France. This operation commenced on the 4th of May and was completed by the 26th of May 1944. Work was performed by the 499th Port Battalion. Barges were self-propelled landing barges and were supplied by the Admiralty. The Admiralty was unable to supply allocated barges at the beginning of the outloading programme due to adverse weather conditions. Others were substituted, with the result that difficulties arose. The substitute barges varied in size from those that were to have been received. Also, it was found that weight had been taken into account for pre-stowage, but that measurement had not been given proper consideration in all cases. As a result, certain cargo was shut out. The strength of the 14th port continued to grow during June. By the end of the month, the number of military personnel had risen to 5,153, and the total number of military and civilian personnel jumped to over 5,800. 2 new units, the 103rd and 104th Port Marine Maintenance Companies, joined the 14th port during June. Both were engaged in ship repair and maintenance. A marine repair and maintenance shop was established on the waterfront. Here the various harbour craft of the port were worked on and kept in running condition. The shop proved itself invaluable after the return of damaged craft from France. One other significant addition was that of more British civilian truck drivers to handle the increased transportation needs of Port Battalion stevedores. All activity of the 14th Port and its attached units during the month of June was directed towards D-Day. and the intense period of movement following. Prior to D-Day, the port was aided in the loading of ammunition and POL craft. POL is the United States expression for petroleum, oil and lubricant products. With the arrival of D-Day, however, main efforts were directed towards fulfilling a daily schedule of outloading 12 motor transport vessels. On the 6th of June 1944, the port went on full invasion loading schedule. This activity fell into two parts: loading of vehicles and personnel on MTs, motor transport ships, and the loading of general stores on coasters. It was planned that the port would load and sail 12 MT vessels daily. These were Liberty ships that had been ballasted and lower hold floored off. Approximately 120 vehicles and 500 personnel were carried by each. This program beginning on the 6th of June 1944 and continued until the 21st of June. At that time, loading was discontinued on the near shore because a severe storm made discharge impossible at the far shore. Motor transport loading was resumed on the 27th of June 1944. The coaster program began on the 11th of June 1944 with the outloading of POL and stores. Changes in far shore requirements made an alteration in the local program advisable, involving the diversion of POL shipments to other ports and the addition of ammunition shipments to this port. During the month of June, a tanker loading program was instituted at Hamble and Poole, with officers at Hamble. The first tanker was loaded out on the 19th of June.